Greetings, everybody. This is Joshua checking in with Communitas Christi. So, I don't know exactly what I'm doing right now. This isn't a well planned out, pre thought out video. But what I'm not doing is making enough content, and what I'm not doing is I'm pushing myself emotionally and mentally, and I'm kind of coming up with content all the time, but I'm not sitting here and doing this process. So this is really just me talking into a mic, looking into a camera. I'm not sure that I would ever do anything with it. So if I publish this and it seems whatever it seems, just that's what I'm doing right now. So so you have the backstory to this recording. I can't get away from the realization that we're kind of all slaves, and I wary to say that as I see and learn some things about human nature. For example, if humans feel victimized, then they quickly can become way worse than the initial the people that they perceive are the perpetrators of whatever they are victims of. And this this theory follows throughout history. You can track this for yourself throughout different stages of humankind. And so I'm very wary about, I don't think that anybody should feel like a victim, but on a more analytical level, I don't see how it does us any good to act and speak as free men when we're not. We're clearly not. And some of us, my best interpretation of things is some of us perceive that they have advantage over the rest of us. And while sometimes that's true, I believe, for many, many reasons, that those of us who think they have advantage over the rest of us are taking comfort in false idols. And I would say the majority of people, whether, for whatever reason they're taking comfort in these trying times, like, I'm part of this, I'm part of that, I have this, I have that, I'm going to be fine over other people. A lot of those people, especially if they think it's, organizational, structural support that they have in place, I think a lot of them are also part of the expendable whole. I think a lot of people that are integral, matter of fact, it doesn't matter what level of resolution you want to look at it. I think almost every single person that is part of the system, as it were, whatever that is, every single person that's part of the system is helping, directly or indirectly, to not helping humanity, not helping themselves, essentially. But that being said, I perceive, and this is really reductionary and basics, but it's kind of like if you see a wolf, you observe a wolf from like puppy to old age. You observe many wolves. You start seeing what wolves do, and then sometime you see where wolves are kind of preying on a bunch of sheep, but there's only like a few wolves and there's like billions of sheep. So I guess my metaphor would be that the wolves have deputized a bunch of sheep, and they're like, hey, let's get rid of the other sheep. And then the sheep are like, yeah, cool, let's get rid of the other sheep. not realizing that once all these deputized and privileged sheep who have been given their privilege by the wolf, when all the other sheep are gone, then they will be the remaining sheep. And as we all know, wolves eat sheep. So that's my oversimplification of my perception. But anyways, as far as when we want to consider ourselves to be free or not free, we have to look at, I'm gonna try to not get too deep into any details. I'll try to make this pretty succinct. I'm hyper aware. Even when I'm driving around and doing nothing wrong, when I see cops, when the cops are behind me, I'm hyper aware that there are restrictions and rules on pretty much everything I do. And I'm also hyper aware that if I break these rules, there's going to be severe consequences. Well, ranging from, regular consequences to severe consequences. And it's a very interesting point of contention. We now accept things that it's gone both ways. We now accept rules, restrictions, and punishments that would have been insane just 200 years ago, even 100 years ago. The last 100 years have been so radically changed from the constitutional republic we were a lot closer to. We'll go back to 1913. For those in the know, will know why. But pre-1913 there's been a radical change from what this country originally was to now. And a lot of you are going to look at, oh yeah, that's, feminism, women's rights and civil rights and blah, blah, blah. Well, no, that's completely wrong. I think feminism starts in the 1800s, the OG, and I'm 100% OG feminist. Feminism starts back in the 1800s, and then the civil rights are well past when this new thing started. And again, when you step back at levels of resolution, you start realizing that everything's not what it seems. And there's a lot more focus in civil rights, and modern feminism and anti-war movement is a lot more about divide and conquer, as America was a mean machine in the 50s, and we were things were a lot different than they gloss over. They gloss over everything. They highlight certain details, and then they tell you those details are everything, and they do not give you a proper. It takes a lot of work to understand things, and people are not willing to do the work. And on all sides of the media, all sides of information, I see such lazy, lowbrow, just people aren't putting in the work. So just getting your information from other people's work is definitely doesn't make anybody intelligent at all, unfortunately. And I feel like that shifted in my life. I'm 41. I feel like that shifted just in my lifetime. I feel like when I was younger, I was kind of surrounded by higher quality information. But I mean, I understand now in retrospect that there was some propagandic nature and intentional design to it. But ultimately, if I wanted to learn about things objective and generally scientific, I feel like I had good basis of knowledge and information. Even that's gone today. You don't even get to have that type of information without doing work. Anyways, 50s were a lot more cohesive than they would have you they would have you believe today. And this is all besides the point anyways. Divide and conquer is just a way to control people, and so that's why I got drawn into that. But these people in front of us don't have those restrictions. I don't think there's anybody watching this video that thinks that if, Hillary Clinton was pulled over doing 95, she would actually get in any trouble. Okay? But I don't think anybody watching this video thinks that if we got pulled over doing 95, we wouldn't get a pretty decent ticket if the officer was feeling generous. And it depends on the speed limit. Some parts of the country that's actually acceptable because most cops will give you 10 over, and there's 85 miles per hour. So 95 is not really relevant. But let's say 30 over. That was my mark. Let's say 30 over. I'm in a 65 area. Let's say you're doing 30 over. That's the reference point, and it's Hillary versus us. One of these things is if I were to identify that one of these people is part of the plantation owner class, and the other peoples, everybody else pretty much, is part of the slave class, Stevie Wonder could see who was who. So, and as a musician, and as we see what's happening with Kanye, and we see what happened with Prince and Michael Jackson, and I'm not going to go into all that stuff, but when we just see the industry in general, we could argue Stevie Wonder did see the difference between the slave class and the master class. And I'd like to point that out is that Hillary is really too well known to be that important when it's all said and done, because the true master class would never parade themselves in front of the slaves. They would just take some of the sheep, give them the highest accolades, put them in the top spot, and then parade those sheep in front of the other sheep. And in the case of some of these sheep, if the lower sheep are to challenge or speak or whatever, they might get very depressed and take themselves out. But that's only some sheep that have that type of protection from the wolves or the masters. But generally, I think most of the people that we would even say are in charge and in power, I'd say that doesn't even make sense, because if you had that level of control, you don't want to parade yourself and your business out in front of the world. So, anyways, yeah, we're slaves. And I'm not going to leave this on a negative note. I want you to understand that when I say we're slaves, I mean to say that we are in the programming of slaves. And unless we do something about it, we are going to live the lives of slaves, which is to say, serving our masters. I don't know about you, but I liken to think that this life is sacred. It was given to me from on high by something way greater and more powerful than anything on this earth. All the highest accolade sheeps and whoever the wolves may actually be can go piss off, because my true master is beyond and above all of that. And that's where my eternal soul comes from, and your eternal soul comes from. And you are my brother or sister under our Father. And so we're divine. We're sacred. And, you know, they'll tell you anything but. They've got us into a slave mind state. But you're atoms. Atoms. We prefer uranium and plutonium, but atoms, when split, can blow up a whole city. You are atoms. I don't know the exact math on it, but I remember watching a video where it was talking about the electric charge in one single cell. I remember when the math of how many cells we have, and you realize how much latent voltage is in our body. It's like, insane amount. Just look it up. How much electricity or latent power is in the human body. Once you see that, you start seeing crazy stuff as possible. And it's probably because I understand electricity. I understand, I don't know how or why, but if somehow somebody was to activate that voltage, they could easily self-ignite. And there's a known phenomena for a long time of self-ignition. Not like the protesting the monks during Vietnam, but like kind of people sitting in their armchair and just going into fire. And that's been a thing. It's pretty well documented, and I think it's kind of considered mysterious. I don't think it's fully like actualized how it happens, but when you realize we're atoms and you realize we've got insane amount of potential electricity in each and every one of us, and then you start taking in quantum physics, which is basically blowing away Newtonian physics, which is basically making most atheistic arguments null and void and ignorant, and yet they're still propagating that on the kids. They're on one level, it's like, look at all this SpaceX and laser beams and computers, but you're still a monkey. That's part of the slave programming. You are not a monkey. You have enough atoms in you to probably, if actualized properly, just the insane amount of energy. I'm not going to talk destructive talk about potentiality. Just an insane amount of power, an insane amount of energy. And so it's this matrix, it's this programming that's got us bogged down. But to start with, we have to realize we're slaves, and we have to realize, maybe at some point we fell, and I believe this is true, and we fell from grace and we stopped serving God and we started serving ourselves, or more importantly, we started serving fear, because God is love and abundance, and fear is what we're doing today in this world and why we're destroying everything, destroying ourselves, and we're a bunch of sheep that are about to be, looks like we're being led to a meat grinder. We may have fallen in the past, but at this point, we are Samson in the temple. And God has allowed for our hair to grow back. But we must make the choice to serve God in holy righteousness and to take down this temple. And we must be willing to put ourselves on the cross in order for the children to live in the world that God intended. And I pray that this moves and affects you, even if you are not of a spiritual mind state, because my movement, this movement, Communitas Christi, needs everybody. So if you could exchange my identifying deity words with your own, or if you're an atheist, or if you're an agnostic, just see that my passion and my direction is true and healthier. And like, subscribe, follow, and one love. Peace.